The destruction of the Christian community in Turkey continued after the end of the First World War. Greek-populated Smyrna, the biggest Christian city of the Ottoman Empire, was put to the torch. The last surviving Armenian community also lived in Smyrna. Protected by French warships, they, like the Greek inhabitants, took to the boats, never to return. Out of the ruins of the Ottoman Empire rose Kemal Atatürk, the founder of modern Turkey. His state, built as it was on the ideal of military virtue, couldn't admit to the shame of the genocide, even though it wasn't directly responsible for it.
Of course, during this move, some of those who were asked to leave the area, they suffered, no doubt about it. And in some cases, possibly, the Turks who were being killed, they defended themselves too. So both sides suffered, you know, from the events, but the allegation which is made that 1.5 million people are massacred, there is a genocide, this is entirely a big lie of the century.
But all over the Middle East, in the 1920s, there were thousands of Armenian orphans who'd experienced the genocide in their own flesh. With the Bolsheviks snuffing out the independence of the former Russian Armenia and putting an end to free speech there, it was left to these children, who were later resettled all over the world, to keep the memory of the genocide fresh. Some orphan children came to an Armenian school that had been set up in Constantinople in 1879 and finally ended up here in Paris. Many of these children are the descendants of those orphans. The twin facts of the genocide and their survival of it are of immense psychological importance to the Armenians, as indeed is the Holocaust to the Jews. Armenian children here, as in countries round the world, experienced the genocide directly through the memories of survivors. Madame Yuraper Eftian can recall for them the horror of people burned to death in the caves near Deir ez-Zor.
Verşe, kedna horma, kednin daga, kaskına kinçe, mağara mı darin, addığı pırnazı hodne desir, güne deyin. Arap meğaf, inzi, bir pırnar inzi neden tunağda desisi Araper'in sor vereyi. Tunağda desisi, mito bir inzisi, es sadgesa atorini veço. Sadgesa arjunu vazet çagades. Kaçink varı, iştesim, gragıdı verin, gayren gorja olursa, fulus tram gısım gor, tram dövek. İnzi egav mega, sabor, fulusu saf, fulus mal tramı söyle. Mandi fulususi, me kaç şabik karvras, hakuslarız bayere bor, boş munamma haknim. Isi, ante ıksir saf, tunim kuşsesi saf. Kujdamnısı pamudur, haknim bor, kidnam kujdamısı. Isa bor, Muhammed'in bor ayersum günem, bor tu kujsesi saf. İnzi, şu vammaga besmeşkes, inzi, iri horyak boruduğun al verner, kaşes tursanesiz ya atoren. Kısanı çoşşam, boş gerer, boş çurkumerenk. O dem mınaserem. Ad gits versi yefor desam adbese, memnal desam jandarma muguka. Yefor jandarma muguka, inki paha varabı. Yesa katsi adme mortaz günik nerun, çocuklerun meçi bargesa. Gedina.
Kuda bakıyorsun dinçe? Huzeckes, estepka. Şat Huzeckes. Nas modna la bliksan çorsa. Ինչու համար?
Քանի որ հայերուն չարթն է եւ մենգալ հայենք եւ չեն կնար որնալ
Ayo, çenkanal bundan. Pes Türkiye'de ha çok etsen, ilerisine badaga ha çok tutsin.
Ayo,
ինչ ծևով ha çok tutsin.
ամեն մեղցնելով եւ տանակներ առնելով խոանոցներեն։
Ayo, ha çok tutsin, pes ilerisine badaga ինչ էր։
Ամեն Հայաստանը առնել։
Այո։
Եվ մեկ հատ մտքեր, որքան
Թանկարանի մեջ։ Այդպես եղավ։
Ոչ։
Ոչ։ Ինչ են գիտես, որ այդպես չեղավ։ Այո, ալա։
Որովհետև մենք խոսենք
եւ մեր ներկայություն արդեն փաստ մնե, որ իրենց ասածը ինչ են գիտենք, որ իրենց ասածը չեղավ, հաշիվը սխալել է։
Որովհետև մենք խոսենք։
Այո, ասենք, ուրիշ։
Եվ ամեն Հայաստանը չգրցան առնել։
Ապրիս, ունինք նորեն, բզդիկ կդորմը Հայաստան, կոնե բզդիկ, հողմը, դու գգացես որ այդ բզդիկ հողը օրմը բիդի մեծնա։
Այո, որովհետև եւ որ մեծնանք, մենք գերտանք առնել։
Դուք երբ որ մեծնաք, հայկական թադը բիդի չմորնաք, այո, եւ բիդի երտակ առնելու բռնակրամված հողերը բիդի ընթացակվի, բիդի մեծնա մեր հայրենիքը, ուրեմն դու այդ երազը ունիս, այդ երազով ալ բիդի մեծնաս, բիդի չմորնաս։
But it's not enough for Armenians simply to remember the genocide. If its ghosts are to be exorcised, they need the world, and that includes the Turks, to accept the reality of it. For a brief period in the 80s, frustration at the world's indifference led some of them into acts of terrorism.
Kemal Khan, the Turkish consul general, was driving his car to work when he stopped at a traffic light near the Los Angeles Country Club. Two men approached his car, one on each side, and they pumped a dozen bullets into Khan and ran away on foot. Right after the shooting, a caller told news services that the shooting was the work of Armenian nationalists, a protest for the 1915 massacre of 1.5 million Armenians, a slaughter that the Turkish government has never admitted.
Almost immediately after the genocide, the Armenian community in the United States of America started to fight the Turkish cover-up. In America, in 1983, a feature film was made based on Franz Werfel's famous novel, which tells how some Armenian villagers heroically resisted the Turks until rescued by a French fleet. Originally, MGM planned to film the novel as early as 1934. The Turks immediately brought pressure to bear on the company and on the US State Department. They were successful. The film was dropped. The Turkish ambassador wrote a letter of congratulation to the State Department.
It is an agreeable duty for me to extend to you my hearty thanks and appreciation for the efforts you have been so kind to exert. You have created an excellent impression in Turkey.
The voices of Armenian Americans have been increasingly heard in recent years. They want their government to recognize the reality of the genocide and put pressure on Turkey to compensate the victims.
Justice means for the Turks to recognize what they did and to give some type of reparation, somewhat like the Germans did to the Jews during World War II. The world recognizes the Jewish genocide, but they have not looked at the Armenian genocide. If they looked at the Armenian genocide, there might never have been a Jewish genocide.
We want the land that Turkey has kept for 60 years.
You want them back?
Uh-huh, we want it back.
I am reminded of those wonderful words of Yeti Shekhare.
For all of us, it's probably the defining issue of being Armenian, that we survived, that our family survived this genocide. My grandmother, for example, who was maybe 10 or 12 years old, saw our whole family wiped out, except for, well, she actually saw her 9-year-old cousin, she saw bayoneted in the back by Turkish soldiers. She was then sold into slavery in Turkey, escaped, made it to Beirut. My grandfather wrote a letter to the orphanage, said, by the way, I want to marry a woman from this village. They got married, and that's how I'm here. Those are the kinds of things that never leave you. Never leave you. They just burn in your mind. And so no Armenian, I don't think, will ever forget.